if you were Santa, you could do magic.
You want to see some magic? Here, let's watch you disappear.
Jesus, Mother Mary and Joseph, you piss yourself.
Put the drink down right now!
Fuck you.
Hello everybody, welcome to Hollywood Backstory, and I'm A.Y. Allen, and today we're going to take a look at Bad Santa. So Bad Santa was released 26 November 2003, and it stars Billy Bob Thornton, Bernie Mac, John Ritter, Tony Cox, and Lauren Tom. This is one of those adult Christmas movies, and for that day and age, back in 2003, it was kind of a standalone. Most Christmas movies we know are family-oriented movies for kids, not this one. This one has a lot of adult content, a lot of gritty sexual jokes, but it's hilarious, and it's a trip of a movie, and for me, it's one of my personal favorites. So this movie follows Billy Bob Thornton and Tony Cox, who are a Santa Claus and elf duo that basically disguise as your mall Santas for the mall that they want to rob. And first, let me correct myself. I said Lauren Tom. While she is in the movie, she's Tony Cox, Marcus's wife's character in the movie. I meant to say Lauren Graham as well, which is Sue, who is Willie's, which is Billy Bob Thornton character's girlfriend in the movie. So this is a great movie. It's funny. If you haven't seen it, which I'm pretty sure most of you have already seen it, but if you haven't seen it, go check it out before you play this video, because I don't want to ruin anything for you with the movie, because you should just watch it the first time around. But I'm pretty sure 98% of you out there already seen this movie, because it's a classic and there's a lot of one-line singers that we use nowadays. Ass Clown, for example, came from this movie. So the backstory that we're going to take a look at is one that's pretty crucial to the movie moving forward, as far as Willie's character's arc, right? So what we're going to look at is not Willie's bond with the kid, Thurman Merman. To me, that's believable. That's what allowed Willie's character to grow and start to care about more than just himself. He gained some empathy for this kid getting bullied. So a lot of character development took place with that. But what doesn't necessarily make sense is the fact that the kid and his grandma, lived in this house by themselves. Now, that wouldn't necessarily not make sense, except for the fact that the grandma is pretty much going senile, and she can't take care of a little kid. So the problem is Thurman Merman's dad, Roger Merman, as we'll find out in the movie, is locked up in prison doing a bid 3 to 6 years. So what are some of the things we need to look at? One, what's the likelihood that the courts or the cops, law enforcement, would have seized his property? Two, who's paying the bills? Who's paying the mortgage? Who's paying the utilities, electric, water, cable? Who's paying that? Three, who's bringing food into the house? Because back then there was no DoorDash, there was no Grab or Uber food, depending on where you are in the world, to bring food to the house. Next, why is it that the courts have not gotten involved in the fact that this guy, Roger Merman, is being sent to prison for 3 to 6 years? He has a son and a wife that's passed away. And lastly, why haven't anybody in the neighborhood taken notice that there's no adult supervision for this child or anybody from the school? No teachers, no parent-teacher meetings or anything like that? So let's take a look at why has the courts not seized his property as an asset since his crime was embezzlement. Okay, maybe the dollar amount wasn't high enough to warrant the courts seizing his property as assets. Maybe he had enough money. He was able to pay off the fines and the debts that was due to his charges. But generally, anyone who's serving 3 to 6, or it's about 3 to 10 years for embezzlement, well, you can do more years, but generally, individuals who do that much time means that they've stolen a significant amount of money. They generally have their land, house, cars, and all that seized by the courts as part of the punishment, and also a part of the repayment for the monies that they've stolen. So that part doesn't make too much sense. But again, state by state, every state is different. So it may be possible that the state that they're in does not seize your property. But I'm gonna go with it's probably unlikely that they did not, that the courts would have seized his property. So I'm gonna go with that does not work here for this backstory. Next, who's paying the bills? Who's paying the mortgage month to month? Who's paying the electric? Who's paying the water? And I'm just gonna stick with that. I'm not even gonna get into cable because cable can get turned off. You can just watch regular TV. That's fine. So okay, mortgage. Let's just say, go with the best case scenario. Roger Merman has already paid his house off years ago. He owns that house. It's his property. So there is no monthly mortgage payment that's due, even though you still got to pay taxes on your property taxes, right? But we'll let that slide because that's something that you'll do annually, even though if he's doing 3 to 6, if he is getting out on good behavior and was only doing 3 years and is coming up on his 1 year mark, and in a few months he'll be out, which would be next year, as the kid said, then fine. We haven't gotten to him needing to pay any property taxes yet. So that's fine. But you still got to pay water and electrics every month. You still have to pay that. So after the 3rd month, because we know he's been in prison, not even jail, because jail is usually 365 days or less, and you do 365 days plus 1, they put you in a prison. And in the movie, he was clearly in a prison. So we know that he's been incarcerated for at least a couple of months. And this is the best case scenario. If he's only doing 3 years, only charged with 3 years, and he's getting out after a year and a half, and that would be next year, and it's Christmas time now. So who's making those monthly payments towards the electric and the water? Somebody has to make that payment. So that part is unbelievable, and it doesn't work for the backstory. Next, this goes right along with who's paying the bill, who's buying food. The refrigerator seems to be stocked full of food. I know that the kid, Thurman Merman, he's not going shopping and buying food at the supermarket. That's just highly unlikely. And the grandmother, she's not doing it because she's nuts. Billy Bob Thornton character Willie came into the house with a ski mask on and a crowbar, and she just walked past him and said, "Oh, let me get some food." She's totally on another planet. So she's not doing it. So who's doing it? Who's bringing food into the house? And if there's any relatives doing it, they would be drawn to the fact that the kid's mother is dead and his father's in prison doing a 3-year bid, and we're just going with the best case scenario. So this would draw a lot of red flags. So this doesn't make sense, because who's bringing food into that house? This brings us to our next point. Why have the courts not gotten involved in this? As soon as Roger Merman would have gotten arrested, but let's just say his mother was alive. Okay, let's just say his mother was alive when Roger Merman got arrested. First, we'll go with the mother not being alive. So if the mother's not alive and Roger Merman gets arrested, the courts are going to start asking questions about who's going to take care of this kid when we give sentencing to Roger Merman. Let's just say the grandmother was competent at the time. Okay, maybe she was competent and she only over the last few months, due to the stress of her, we'll say her daughter passing away and then her son-in-law being sent to prison. All right, we'll go with that. We'll go with that. That would probably be a reason why the courts would not have gotten involved in child care for this child, for Thurman Merman, the kid, as he's known as in the movie. So we'll let that one slide. We'll let that one slide as not to draw that one out too much, because if the mother was alive when Roger Merman got sentenced to 3 to 6 years, then that brings up more issues. Okay, so the courts wouldn't need to get involved because there's a mother and a grandmother in the house, but as soon as the mother passes away, wouldn't family and friends get involved and start to say, well, who's going to take care of this kid? Unless the grandmother again, at the time was still sane, and only within that last few months she became cuckoo. So we'll say that that one works. It's highly unlikely, but I'll give this one, it works. And lastly, why is it that none of the neighbors, because the neighbor came over, he wanted them to do the sand illumination thing in front of the house, and obviously he must have a really close relationship with Roger Merman, because after Willie told him, yeah, we'll do it, and then he says, okay, I'm gonna go into the garage and get some stuff, get some supplies, okay, I'm in the garage. If he's that close to his neighbors that he would just, Roger Merman, that he would just go into his garage, that means they must have a close relationship. I would assume that at some point in time, the neighbor would probably be asking questions, coming over, knocking on the door. Hey, where's your, anybody taking care of you? Because he would see that the grandmother is cuckoo, because it takes you 2 seconds to realize that, right? But again, that's something that's still not likely, because people do tend to give you your privacy depending on what neighborhood you're living in. So we'll just say this is a neighborhood where people stay to themselves, and it's the holiday season, so this is the only reason why he's coming over, ringing the doorbell. Fine, that I work with that. Why hasn't anybody from the school, any teachers, any counselors, the principal, why hasn't anybody noticed that this kid doesn't have any parental guidance? There's no parents coming to any of the school meetings or anything, or, you know, well, that's also very plausible, because most of us know we go to school, and how often do teachers and principals or counselors need to contact your mother or father, unless you're in some kind of incident or something is coming up. And even then, if there's a PTA, parents don't have to go. My parents didn't go to all my PTA meetings, so we'll go with that one. Actually works. So both of those works. The neighbors may not have noticed because they're working, busy, minding their own business, and the schools have no reason to need to contact his parents, because as he shows Willie in the movie, the kid shows Willie his report card.
Who the fuck is Thurman? Is that you? Is your name Thurman?
Yeah.
Thurman Merman?
Yeah.
That's passing. He's not a troublemaker. He's not getting into any disciplinary problems except for when he's being bullied at the mall, and that has nothing to do with school. So this backstory actually works. So as we always like to do, we're going to take a look to see if this backstory works. And we've got the seizure of property, which is highly likely that his property would have been seized. So we got a does not work. Who's paying the bills? No one's paying the bill, so that doesn't work. Who's bringing in food? That kind of goes right along with who's paying the bill. No one's bringing in the food. That doesn't work. Courts getting involved? It's likely that they wouldn't get involved because of the reasons that we mentioned. And neighbors in school not knowing, that's also likely. So those two work. But we got 3 not work and 2 work. So as always, this backstory doesn't work. Regardless if this backstory works or not, Bad Santa is a classic movie. It's funny. It's one of my favorites. I highly recommend you watch it if you haven't seen it. And if you've seen it, watch it again. It's Christmas time. So what better time to take a look at a Christmas movie that's crazy and hilarious, but not for kids. So it's not suitable for kids. Yeah. So as always, please hit the like and subscribe button to help this channel grow. And stay tuned for the next episode of Hollywood Backstory.